As the world gets used to lockdown and the travel industry goes into free fall, just how long will it be before we can plan our next holiday of a lifetime or week in the sun?
We go to any place in Europe basically to get out of Thailand.
There's no flights. There's no flights.
The sense is that we will see in June something like normal travel beginning again, but it will be on a small scale. It won't be anything like the normal summer that we would be looking forward to at this time.
Half the world is in lockdown. The skies are empty. Travelling for fun now seems like an impossible prospect to most of us. And if you did still want to get away, you would be hard-pressed to find normal air routes still operating, hotels or borders still open, or insurance to cover your trip. Governments all over the world have been racing to repatriate their citizens. The European Union alone has brought back more than 350,000 people on rescue flights. But an estimated 200,000 are still stuck overseas.
I've lost count now how many flights I've tried to book home. We're just desperate now just to get anything. But money's running short because we're booking things. Nothing's going through, everything's getting cancelled and we're not getting any money back.
We go to any place in Europe basically to get out of Thailand.
There's no flights. There's no flights.
We've been scrambling about trying to get all the flights. We've managed to get one from Seoul, Korea to Heathrow. That's cost us a further 1,500 quid a piece, so it's £5 we paid to get back now. It's just been abandoned basically.
It is every day more difficult because the airlines are grounding the planes and their space is every day more close. The hubs are being impossible to use. The transfers are more difficult. But I think that little by little, all of them will go back home.
But perhaps the biggest headache facing aviation and many of us is the issue of refunds from airlines who, with most or all of their flights grounded, have already lost a huge chunk of their income. Claimants are being faced with unanswered emails and long waits on the phone as airline call centres struggle to cope. It seems like a long way off, but this will all be over one day, and the world's tourism bosses are already thinking about how to rebuild their industry from the fallout of the current crisis.
What first I think people will start to travel because of business meetings, because of leisure, because of postponed travels and trips, which are millions worldwide. Of course, there will be some changes in market, there will be some changes in mentality.
Well, I'm joined now by the travel show's resident global guru, Simon Calder. We spoke 3 weeks ago, but what do you think about the way that things have developed since then?
In order to look forward, it's helpful to look back, and just going back 3 weekends, which feels in this pandemic like 100 years, we were living in a different world. Most international airlines and hotels were working normally. Yes, they had far fewer customers, but at least you could travel and stay in places. It was pretty much that weekend we saw this great surge of international flight bans and then individual countries saying they didn't want people from particular nationalities. And by now, pretty much everywhere on the planet is in some kind of lockdown, and the idea of travelling for pleasure seems right now preposterous.
Yes, because we heard from the UN WTO there talk about the future and recovery, but tell me, how will international travel start to rebuild in your view?
So you will need, of course, individual countries to allow you and I to go for a coffee, or indeed to go to an international airport. Then the destination country needs to be prepared to accept visitors, and of course that is all tied in with the trajectory of the coronavirus. And some countries will say, actually, we're going to give it a couple of months. Others will say, no, we are desperate, our entire economy depends on tourism, so we could have something of a kind of bidding war even breaking out in the Mediterranean. I've taken soundings from dozens of people across the planet, and the sense is that we will see in June something like normal travel beginning again, but it will be on a small scale. And even if there is huge amounts of pent-up demand from you and I desperate to travel, it won't be anything like the normal summer that we would be looking forward to at this time.
Well, Simon, for now, thanks. As you can imagine, we've been inundated with questions from people all over the world who've had to change their travel plans. So we'll be going through some of those later on. But first, more on how the travel industry is trying to cope with this seismic shift. Benidorm, usually a buzzing Spanish coastal getaway for holidaymakers from across Europe. Now, for one of its top hoteliers, it's a very different story. At any one day during high season, he'll often have 8,000 guests spread across his 11 hotels and resorts. Today, there are none.
Our business is a family business. My father was the founder when he was 30 years old. Now he is 82 and still working hard. Yes, it's a passion, no, for all our family. We were growing near 20% year on year in only 5 days, really. Everything changed, and now all of our hotels are closed down, our employees are furloughed, and we are experiencing a vast economic impact. We are still receiving new bookings, so we have hope.
And the kind of pressures hoteliers like Javier are facing are seen all over the world. In the Maldives, with its picture-perfect resorts, tourism has come to make up more than a quarter of its income. It's faced relatively few confirmed cases of COVID-19, just less than 24, but was still quick to cancel all visa on arrivals for travellers coming into the country. Earlier this year, Addy filmed a story about coral conservation at the Anantara resort there. Just over a week ago, the last guests left Anantara and its 3 sister resorts. But they're still optimistic about the future.
We are planning for future. That means we are constantly starting to renovate now, refurbish things. We're expecting that everything will go back to normal here in the Maldives approximately end of June, when we're expecting tourists coming to the Maldives in a big volume again.
So how is this crisis affecting what has long been at the heart of the travel industry, the traditional package holiday? In the UK, the Association of British Travel Agents has been monitoring events closely. Can you tell me, first of all, what's the situation currently with your members?
It's pretty desperate out there. It's a combination of 2 things, which is, number one, forward bookings for sales have really dried up. But secondly, there's a situation where basically, obviously, you're getting tens of thousands of holidays that are being cancelled, or customers that are seeking refunds for those holidays. Many of them have put their own staff in furlough already. But again, they've got a challenge there, because a lot of travel companies obviously have been working on bringing customers back home, or again, sorting out the situation around refunds. So it's very difficult. So
morale is obviously not great. Do they think that they can survive this storm? And what the majority of them, do they think they're going to be okay?
The travel industry is typically really resilient. You know, it's used to dealing with crises. It's used over many, many years. It's dealt with everything from terrorism incidents to tsunamis to volcanic ash clouds. The industry is used to dealing with issues and destinations. I suppose the difference here is just the scale of it and the immediacy of it. And we need to try and make sure that whatever we're doing now is thinking about the future as well. It's thinking about, you know, whether that's the future in another 5-6 months, or whether it's a future several years down the line, that we still have the tourism industry there at the end of all of this. And I think what we're seeing in other countries around Europe, Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, Italy, they're all taking measures, and they're all stepping in really with measures, particularly around this issue of refunds, to try and ensure that consumer protections are still in place, customers still maintain their right to a refund, but that businesses are given a bit more time in order to give those refunds. And I think that's what we need to see happen here in the UK as well.
So Simon, I think the basic message there from ABTA is that if we all try and get our refunds now, the package tourism industry will crash. Is that true?
Certainly, if you have a good relationship with your travel firm and you're prepared to give them a bit of time to refund you, then that's probably a smart move in the long run. But it also draws attention to the fact that, well, actually, travel companies have an interesting business model where the money you pay for your holiday in 6 months' time is used to pay the bills for my holiday departing now.
Hey, it's Mike of the BBC Travel Show, and as you can imagine, we're taking a little pause right now due to the circumstances. For myself, I'm back in Canada. As you can see, I still haven't really left the travel lifestyle behind completely, but I'll be here for the next 4 or 5 months, which is a very big life change for me. I haven't been in one spot for probably half a decade. But I've been able to speak to some friends, and since a lot of us have YouTube travel channels or Instagram pages, there's lots of interesting stories about how we've had some problems. My friends EAMON and BECK, a Canadian couple, had just brought their van from the Americas over to Morocco, only to have to abandon the van in Africa.
I don't want to leave the van.
Hopefully we'll see it in a few months.
Things happened and escalated really quickly in Morocco. 1 week earlier, nobody was even speaking about the coronavirus. It wasn't something that was even on our radar, to be quite honest. And then within a 48-hour period, the borders were closed. Our friend who had come to visit was stuck there with us, and
military in the street yelling, "Corona, Corona!" And it was a very difficult decision, as I'm sure a lot of people faced, but we had our home, our investment, our business, everything was kind of us traveling the world. And so we need to make a decision on, listening to the government, advising us to come home, and ditching our van, and that's kind of the decision that we made.
Wow, this is not easy, but I think we're as prepared as we're gonna be.
My immediate hope for the end of this crisis is to get on a plane and get back to our van in Morocco.
Well, I have a pretty interesting story myself. So I was on the island of Socotra, which is right here on the map, right in the middle. It's this beautiful jewel in the Indian Ocean, filled with endemic species that are only found there, kind of like Galapagos or Madagascar. And funny story, my girlfriend is still on that island.
Hi there, I'm Eva Zubik and I'm a travel vlogger. I am currently stuck on Socotra Island in Yemen. Of course, this has hugely affected all of my travel plans. However, luckily, because we are in such an isolated spot, there is no coronavirus on the island, and we're able to roam around freely. There's no quarantine and no curfew. So I've been trying to keep myself busy.
Sleeping under the stars, hiking around, and just really, trying to enjoy the situation that I'm kind of stuck in.
Okay, and that's it. That's how I speak to my girlfriend in times like this.
Like many other people, I'm facing the prospect of months stuck at home, but rather than resign myself to it, I've been looking at ways I can travel the globe from the comfort of my own home. If you're looking for a high-end transportive experience, virtual reality headsets have been offering users immersive 360-degree experiences for quite some time now. Using an Oculus Rift, for example, you can head to its website and purchase VR tours of Pompeii and Chernobyl. And having tried a few of them, it's striking how lifelike the visual recreations often are. What it can't capture, of course, is the actual experience of being there. Plus, it's not cheap. One of the big headsets like the PlayStation VR or the HTC Vive will set you back hundreds of pounds. If you want to save that money for an actual holiday, then I'd recommend looking at YouTube and this absolutely brilliant account from a user called Rambalak based in Japan. Now, Rambalak posts 4K quality videos of walks around cities and landmarks, and that's it. So no commentary, nobody talking to you, just long, unbroken shots and natural sounds. And if you can settle into its rhythm, it's weirdly absorbing and relaxing too. If it's the nightlife you're missing, you can always get a taste of Berlin's legendary club scene. United We Stream is offering live stream sets from some of the city's hottest DJs, as well as live music performances and documentaries about the club culture. It's all for a good cause too. If you buy a virtual club ticket, the money will go into a relief fund supporting the city's nighttime institutions and their thousands of employees. And if you have a stay-at-home travel suggestion, get in touch with me on the Travel Show's Facebook, Instagram and Twitter accounts.
Now, in Morocco, all flights in and out of the country have been suspended, and those inside are under lockdown. You may remember last year Addy went to the Jarjeer mule and donkey refuge in the foothills of the Atlas Mountains. Working animals are relied upon heavily there and are often discarded when they're too old to work. Places like these are few and far between.
Hi, welcome to Jarjeer.
Tell me, how have you been coping? How's it going?
If I'm honest, it's been a bit scary. We knew as soon as the virus was becoming a pandemic, we would have to change things here. And we stopped all visits. And now, of course, we're in lockdown. At the moment, I have quite a lot of very good supporters around the world. So we're still able to pay the staff and feed the donkeys, which is an absolute priority. So many people lose their jobs abroad. We're clearly not going to have donations. So if things got really bad, we could be facing, having to sell up. But we're all determined that won't happen.
Can you make appeals on social media or on your platforms or whatever for more funds to come in?
What we do is a broadcast each day on social media, and that way we've managed to keep the donations coming in. We employ people from the village. We buy £1,000 worth of food a week. If all that collapses, the village is going to suffer. So it's not just about donkeys.
Well, by the sounds of it, Susan, at least one of your donkeys is in fine fettle. We wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Last October, Lucy travelled to the Volcanoes National Park in Rwanda to see the famous gorillas. The park is one of the few places in the world where the population of apes is rising due to increased conservation efforts. This has meant a boost in tourism driven by the desire to see these majestic animals. But now this stream of income has dried up.
Well, the current situation is very tough. As you know, there's a restriction, what is called stay home, but it's a population of mountain gorilla that is used to humans. So it means if you lose one day monitoring, it means something else can happen, like trauma or snares or sickness.
Now, obviously, you rely partly at least on tourists coming in, and that money has disappeared. How's that affecting you?
Well, the money had disappeared, yes, and the tourism has been used as a very significant tool towards gorilla conservation. That this population of mountain gorillas, so they all live between a highly densely population of human beings. So it means any financial crisis, these people are likely to go back and do the poaching. What I'm predicting is that these organizations and host countries, governments, Rwanda, Congo, and Uganda, will have to make more sacrifices to consider conservation as part of their major agenda of things to fix.
And what would you say to people who are watching right now at home and perhaps want to help you?
If you have few money, just keep donating. If you don't, just keep advocating for these animals. We all need to help each other, talk every time, and then find solutions.
Lastly, we're speaking to an animal rehabilitation centre deep in the Amazonian rainforest. Meratonia looks after more than 200 rescued animals. When local authorities find illegal pets, they take them there in the hope that one day they can be released back into the wild.
When the crisis started to really hit Ecuador, we had full volunteers, and since then we've had a lot of the families of certain volunteers wanting them to go home, of course. So we've endeavoured to try and get them home, which we've succeeded in, but that's left us with a real skeleton staff, really. There's a lot more work for everybody just to try and get the basics done. I think if we lost any more people, then we'd be starting to really struggle. Yeah, it's something that we've been thinking about and planning for, but hopefully, not having to deal with. The local supermarket has been giving us donations of food, which has been massively helpful financially.
Would you ever now turn an animal away just because you couldn't cope?
We haven't received as many animals as what we would do normally because of the travel restrictions. There are a few arrivals of animals still coming in. We had a baby sloth this week. I think within our little world of Meratonia, the animals will always come first.
It's important, isn't it, Simon, to realise how dependent projects like those are all around the world on people like us.
One hope I have is that just as societies have become more attuned to the needs of other people, as travellers, we might be more focused on the host community and the planet itself when we come to spend our money.
Travelling responsibly.
Yes.
OK, time now for some more quickfire questions from viewers. What can someone do if they're worried the travel agency or company is not answering their phone calls or emails? What are their next moves?
Well, lots of companies, of course, in lockdown at the moment. Their staff are working from home with just a laptop and a mobile phone. I'm afraid I have to say, give it time. If you're not booked to travel imminently, then just ease off for a while.
If you've paid the deposit, should you pay the rest of the booking if you fear that you could lose your money?
You won't lose your money if it's a proper package holiday. Keep paying. If you don't, the only guarantee is you'll lose your deposit.
What are the rules around package holiday companies only offering to rebook for another date and refusing refunds?
If it's a proper package holiday, the package travel regulations apply and you're due all your money back, ideally within 2 weeks.
If you booked a hotel on a non-refundable rate, does that mean you just cannot get a refund?
If the hotel wasn't open and couldn't satisfy its side of the bargain, then you can argue you're due a full refund. But if the room was there, you just couldn't get there, I'm afraid you'll be lucky if you get a credit note.
I booked with Airbnb, so what are my rights?
If you booked before the 14th of March and your stay is any time up to the end of May, you are due a full refund.
Really useful as ever, Simon. Thanks for that. Now, even though we're not going anywhere anytime soon, over the coming weeks we'll be picking some of our favourite trips from the past for you to watch again. Let's enjoy some armchair travel, shall we, until we hit the road again. But for now, from me, Raj and Datar, and the Travel Show team, wherever you are in the world, it's goodbye.